Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's installment of Layman's View. This is where we review a week that was. I'm Ntobeko Khuluse. Let's look at some of the stories that came out of this week. I'll look at 4 stories that stood out for me. 1. Phala Phala. 2. Mkhize versus SARS. 3. Crime stats. And lastly, ANC Provincial Executive Committee in KZN and Gauteng being invited or called into a meeting by ANC National Working Committee. Those are the 4 stories that I'll look at in this week's installment of Layman's View. If there's a story that I didn't mention that stood out for you, please feel free to go into the comment section and share your thoughts and views. Let's get on with it. Phala Phala case back in the agenda, thanks to the EFF and ATM. So you would remember that there were monies that were found stashed in Phala Phala, President Ramaphosa's farm, and many state institutions investigated. That includes SARS, the public protector, and they all found that President Ramaphosa didn't do anything wrong. So all of these state institutions said the fact that President Ramaphosa had thousands and thousands of US dollars in his house, stashed somewhere, there's nothing wrong with that. And many people are saying, if an ordinary person is found with international money, foreign currency in their house, will that be okay? And many people are saying, not really. It seems like something is fishy here. That's what people are saying. Then there was a panel, a Section 89 panel, independent panel report that was instituted by the then Speaker, Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula. That panel report found that there is some evidence or some prima facie evidence that maybe President Ramaphosa has something to answer. And that report said Parliament should institute a committee that will look at impeaching President Ramaphosa, on whether he should be impeached or not. So when that happened, and the rumors are that President Ramaphosa wanted to step down, and he was convinced by his allies in the ANC, the likes of Gwede Mantashe and Mondli Gungubele, are said to have been very instrumental in making sure that President Ramaphosa doesn't step down. I remember when that report came out, we all thought President Ramaphosa will be tendering his resignation. But he was convinced by the strong men and women in the ANC and said, you have our support, you are not going anywhere. As a result, he didn't go anywhere, and the panel reports went to Parliament, and ANC MPs voted against this report being adopted. I remember the only ANC MP that voted for the report to be adopted and for the Parliament to look at whether President Ramaphosa is still fit to be the president or not is Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, who said yes to the report. And ANC was unhappy. As a result, because ANC at the time was the majority, this report was not adopted by the then Parliament. So now, EFF, this week on Tuesday, we saw EFF and ATM arguing that it was unconstitutional for the Parliament not to adopt this report. In fact, what EFF is asking for, because I think that we need to have some clarity there. So what EFF is asking for, EFF is asking the Constitutional Court not only to set aside the National Assembly's decision against adopting the report by the independent panel, but also to substitute that decision with the favor of adopting the report and institute impeachment proceedings against President Ramaphosa, or alternatively refer the matter back to the National Assembly for a fresh vote. So it would be very interesting to see if EFF and ATM they will get what they've asked for. We know that currently judgment is reserved, and maybe those who know umthetho, uma bekuthiwa judgment is reserved, usuku uzoreservwa i-judgment for how long? Because I've seen that sometimes judgments get reserved for weeks, sometimes for months, and you always don't know how long it will take for the judgment to come out. So when can we expect the judgment to come out on this matter? Because this matter is now back in the agenda. Everybody's now talking about Phala Phala again, because if the Constitutional Court finds in favor of EFF and the ATM, that will be very interesting. That will be very interesting. And it will be interesting to see if President Ramaphosa, as it was previously reported, will this time around resign, or he will stick around and face this head on. Because what is also interesting with this, if you remember correctly, President Ramaphosa looked to have this report by the independent panel reviewed. But then again, when Parliament, when Parliament voted against this report, he then withdrew that review application that he had put into the Constitutional Court, if I'm not mistaken. I'm very interested in knowing your thoughts and views on this one. Do you think President Ramaphosa will stick around if there are impeachment proceedings against him? Should the Constitutional Court find in favor of the EFF and the ATM? What are your thoughts on that? While speaking on this matter and the EFF, matters surrounding this case, what was interesting is that it also highlighted the tensions between the EFF and the MK party. We saw Julius Malema saying, I invite all the progressive parties, but the MK party. In fact, Julius Malema said, MK party is their biggest enemy, and it's the immediate enemy that they need to deal with. So he said, we don't want to see anything that has got to do with MK party. So basically, Julius Malema declared MK party the biggest enemy, more than the GNU, more than the white monopoly capital. So the MK party, he sees it as a threat, because you would remember that MK party has been getting a lot of leaders from the EFF. So what did you make of that? Dalimpofu responded, Advocate Dalimpofu, who also is the reason why Julius Malema is not impressed. Advocate Dalimpofu responded saying, you know what, we're not going to play that game, because Tina siyalwazi udlame, and we know the results of political violence. And he said, if you are old enough, you would remember political violence in the 80s, of black on black violence. Black parties seeing each other as enemies. So the MK party is taking a stance that we're not going to respond to Julius Malema. So I thought that was very interesting, because I know that here I'm speaking about the case, Phala Phala, but that everyone was invited to join the march by the EFF, to the Constitutional Court when this case was taking place, but the MK party was not invited. So everything around Phala Phala, MK party, EFF, the fights that are happening, very interesting. What do you make of all of that? I would love to know your thoughts. Please go into the comment section and share your thoughts and views. Moving on a little bit from politics, where we were looking at the Phala Phala matter, let's talk Mkhize, Shauwn Mkhize, the Durban businesswoman who's also a socialite. She had her own reality TV show showing us how great her life is. She's hugely successful. She's made a name for herself in the business space, but also in the entertainment space. SARS came knocking for her. And if you watched her show, that was playing on Showmax, if I'm not mistaken, you would remember that she did talk about SARS. And she did say she feels like SARS is victimizing her. So this time around, SARS came knocking for her because allegedly she owes SARS, wait for it, 37 million rands. 37 million rands. That's a lot of money. If you call it to SARS, 37 million rand, how much do you have? Imali nje le mele ngabe uyikhokhile ezintela. Mhlawumbe khona ayikhokhile le ayikweletayo. So that means she's got, I don't know how many other millions in her account. So yeah, that's the story. So with the story Shauwn Mkhize, we saw police raiding her mansion in Devon. That we all know Umuzi Mkhize, beautiful, beautiful house. That house was raided by the police, and we saw videos of her expensive cars being towed away by the police. You know, it was a fleet basically of cars, many cars being towed away by police, and a whole lot of other documents we are told were taken from her home. This is all done by SARS in a quest of trying to make sure that she pays the amount that she allegedly owes SARS, which is estimated to be around 37 million rands. With that happening, we saw a lot of people commenting on Twitter. Some people are saying Mkhize is being targeted because she's a successful black woman, while others are saying, no, it's not because she's a black woman, it's because she did not pay her tax. And people are like, but what if she was a white man? Would this be happening? And others are saying, if she was a white man don't necessarily go on social media and flaunt their, you know, their expensive lives and all the luxury that they have. That's what people were saying. In fact, let me read some of the comments of people that were tweeting on Twitter around this story. There's one by @joy_Zelda who said, Mkhize is corrupt and a fraudster and should be behind bars. And then there's another ex-user who tweeted and said, she is corrupt all the way from RDP houses, corruption, where she made most of her money, and bribery of the investigating officer investigating that corruption. You reap what you sow. Nobody is above the law. But not everybody was saying that. We had some people that were agreeing, that actually were supporting Mkhize. There's one that said, how many white and Indian tycoons are behind bars for not paying SARS? In fact, let me reread that. It says, how many white and Indian tycoons are behind in paying SARS? Strength to you, Mkhize. That's what Talk Lessers said. Another user said, Shauwn Mkhize is another example of why Black Diamond should never shine. It must always get harassed and attacked by law enforcement because being black means corruption. So you can see that people are divided on Twitter. Some people are saying Mkhize is being attacked because she's a black successful woman. Others are saying, no, it has nothing to do with her being black. It's because she did not pay her tax. And others are taking as files saying she's corrupt. I don't know what you make of that. Very interesting story. All I know is that Mkhize is successful. But if she has not been paying her tax, the law must take its course. But if she's being targeted because she is a successful black woman, then that would be wrong. So what do you think is happening here? Do you think kunesandla sesithathu, kunesandla soboya, Mkhize is being targeted because she is a successful black woman, or she's not necessarily being targeted? SARS is doing what SARS is supposed to do, making sure that people pay their tax. Please go into the comment section and share your thoughts and views. I said the second last story that we'll look at is the crime stats that came out this week. So we saw crime stats coming out this week where we saw almost all crimes, being told that they've gone down. So if you look at the murder rate, it dropped by 5.8% in the second quarter. We saw sexual offenses dropping by 2.5%. We saw robbery with aggravating circumstances dropping by 8.8%. Rape dropping by 3.1%. There were others that went up slightly, where there was, attempted murder. It went up by 2.2%, and then in assaults with an intent to do grievous bodily harm, it went up by 1%. But largely, if you look at the stats, everything has largely gone down. Not everything, but they've largely gone down. So looking at those stats, wherever you are, in your home, in your township, in your area where you stay, do you feel a little bit safe? Do you feel like with amaphoyisa njengamanje ayowenza umsebenzi wawo yikho ama-stats ehla? Abanye bathi ama-stats ehla ngoba nakhu abantu abayi kowa-reporta ama-cases, ngoba bayazi ukuthi amaphoyisa ngeke awenze umsebenzi wawo noma akawenzi umsebenzi wawo. That's what other people are saying. But others are saying this is the direct results of umsebenzi ka-Minister Senzo Mchunu, who is the police minister, because he is seen as someone who's doing a good job. He's not as aggressive as the former minister, Bheki Cele. He's not as in your face as the former minister was. Senzo Mchunu is rather calm. Even his approach is not as aggressive, and others are saying that's the approach that is needed. Hence, we are starting to see positive results from what Minister Senzo Mchunu has been doing over the past couple of months. What do you make of that? Do you really feel like crime is going down? Do you feel safe, in your space than you did last quarter or last year? Please do share your thoughts. Having said that, having said crime is going down, but let me put that into context. Crime is going down, but South Africa, crime is still very high in comparison to other parts of the world. 70 people get murdered in South Africa every day. 70 people. That's a very high number. 70 people get murdered in South Africa every day. Let that sink in. It's a big number. Crime might be going down, but that's a very big number. That's a very, very big number. So something has to be done. We need to start seeing these numbers going down drastically. It's good to see the numbers going down by 2.5%. Those are all good numbers, but we need something drastic to happen to reduce that 70 people. 70 people are a lot of people who are being murdered in South Africa every day. Let's look at some of the police stations where most murders are reported. Inanda, in KwaZulu-Natal, eThekwini, Inanda, is the leading police station in the country where most murders are reported. Inanda is followed by Philippi East in Cape Town, and then the third one is KwaZakhele in Nelson Mandela Bay. What I found to be interesting in this list, if you look at the top 10 police stations where most murders are reported, there are 5 police stations are in Cape Town. That's a very high number. So which simply means Cape Town is proving to be a dangerous province, or rather city, 5 of the police stations in the top 10. Is it 5? Let me see. Look at my number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, it is 5. 5 of the police stations in the top 10 of police stations where murders are being reported. They are all in Cape Town. So police minister still has his work cut out for him. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. We are grateful that numbers are going down, but we are still not safe. I asked you a question if you feel safe. I don't feel safe. I don't like stopping at the robots at night. In fact, I avoid stopping at the robots at night because there was a previous attempt in hijacking me. So I have that, that trauma from that time. So I hate it if I have to stop at the robots. What are some of your traumas that you are suffering on your side because of crime that we are seeing in South Africa? Do you feel safe? Because I don't. But we are glad that numbers are going down. That was the third story that I had promised that we'll look at. The last story that I'd like us to look at is the fact that the National Working Committee has invited the PEC of ANC PEC of KwaZulu-Natal, and I'm told in Gauteng as well, into a meeting on Saturday, today. That is if you are watching this on a Saturday. That meeting has not taken place because we are playing this early in the morning, but the meeting is scheduled to take place at 2 at Birchwood Hotel, where ANC PEC members are expected to come into this meeting to apparently answer for the performance of the ANC in their provinces. You'd remember that in KZN, ANC dropped to about 17%. In Gauteng, I think it was about 34%, if I'm not mistaken. So those are ridiculous numbers if you know who the ANC is. I mean, the ANC is the party that has been ruling this country for 30 years with crazy numbers. So dropping to 17% in KZN. So ANC National Working Committee will be apparently asking ANC PECs to answer why did they lose so many votes. So very interesting with that. I saw a video by Begim Tolo saying everyone in the ANC should be asking themselves why did they lose votes. Those who lost VDs, they should be asking themselves why did they lose those votes. Those who lost province, he said he lost a province because him and Duma, are leading the province here in KZN. But he also went on to say President Ramaphosa and Fikile Mbalula lost elections by 40%. Was that him fighting back, saying, we should not be scapegoats? Because I just had someone who was calling SAFM saying ANC, they deployed its big wigs here in KZN to campaign. Former President Thabo Mbeki was here in KZN. ANC had a huge rally, I think they are Siyanqoba rally in Moses Mabhida Stadium. So is it fair to say it's the ANC PEC that lost elections in KZN, whereas even the NEC members, they were deployees, national deployees who came here in the province, and they didn't do any differences. Same thing happened in Gauteng. We saw Tokyo Sekhwale was campaigning in Gauteng. We didn't see much difference there either. Numbers didn't improve. So is it fair to blame the ANC PEC? Will they be dissolved? Do you think they should be dissolved? If you are watching this after the announcement, please do share your thoughts on what has happened, because we'll wait for the announcement as the meeting is taking place at 2. But just feel free to share your thoughts on what is happening with the ANC and holding people accountable with losing elections. I would love to know your thoughts and views. This has been Layman's View. Me just sharing my views. Please do feel free to go into the comment section and share your views and thoughts as well. Really love reading your views and thoughts. It's on podcast, radio, and stuff. Please do catch Ntokozo and I tomorrow at 9 a.m. We'll be having a brand new episode. The person that we'll be talking to is an actor and a radio presenter. So please make sure that you tune in here on podcast, radio, and stuff. Do subscribe, do share, do like, do tell everyone, and join as a member. If you join as a member, you contribute only 9.99 rands. Thank you for watching. Have a great weekend. I'm Ntobeko Khuluse. It's podcast, radio, and stuff.